Hey everybody, it's Emily from Mark Schooling, and today I'm going to do my March reading wrap-up. So it's been a while. I've been busy. I haven't had time to film, but I wanted to sit down today and at least get this out. So I'm just going to talk a little bit about what I read over the month of March. I read 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I read 6 things. One ebook and everything else is physical books. 1 graphic novel, or 2 graphic novels, a play, and 2 novels. So let's just get into it in no particular order. A lot of these are for grade 10 somewhere, because that's mostly what I'm reading right now. I read Julius Caesar by William Shakespeare. I've read this many times before. This is probably like my 4th or 5th time reading, I think. And yeah, this is probably going to be in grade 10 if I can make it work, and I think I can, because it just seems like it belongs there when we're talking about Rome. So there's not much I can say. This is one of my favorite Shakespeare plays. I love the intrigue and the drama of it. I love the story, and yeah, Julius Caesar is probably one of the most well-known Romans, I think, in history. So I read that, 5 stars. I read The Pallets of Illusions, and I'm not going to be able to say this name, by Chitra Banerjee Divakaruni. I don't know. I'm sorry. I'm sure I butchered that. But I read this book and I loved it. This is actually really beautiful. It's a retelling of a very famous Hindu mythology called the Mahabharata. I'm not sure how you say it. It's basically about these brothers who are fighting against another set of brothers. They're all related. I think they're cousins. And they're fighting for the throne. And it's a lot of battles and intrigue. But this is interesting because the woman who wrote this, wanted to retell it from a feminist standpoint. So this is retold from the perspective of Panchali, who was married to the 5 brothers. And so she's telling it from her perspective, and it's just really interesting, and I like the way it was written. The language in the prose is just so beautiful. I would sit and read and like just have to stop a minute and just kind of bask in the sentence because her writing is just beautiful. And I honestly am not familiar at all with the mythology before reading this. I did read a tiny, like, brief sort of blurb about it just to kind of give myself some background, but it's just really interesting and well done, and I loved reading about a different culture, even though this takes place in sort of a mythological past. So these aren't necessarily real people, and there's a lot of, like, people who are gods, but you don't know that they're gods, but they can do things, and it's really interesting to read, and I enjoyed it thoroughly, and I gave this 4 stars. I also read the 2nd volume in the Cartoon History of the Universe. This one covers ancient China through the fall of Rome, and I really like this series. It's fun. I'm reading the 3rd one right now. I'm like halfway through it, but I love how he covers so much history in such a sort of, what word do I want here? In sort of a brief but like explosive way. You get a lot of information, but you don't know that you're getting all that information. It doesn't feel like you're reading a dense textbook. So it's really fun and interesting, and he's really witty. He throws a lot of humor in it, and this would appeal a lot, I think, especially to my sons, but to like anybody who thinks they don't like history, they will like it after they read this. Anyone who thinks that history is boring should pick these up, because he makes it just so much more interesting and so much fun. And I love history, so I'm one of those who enjoys reading history books for fun. And I thought these were amazing, and I really like them. I'm so glad I found them. 5 stars. The other graphic novel I read was Serenity, Those Left Behind. I just finished a rewatch of Firefly with my 17-year-old. She hadn't seen it before, so I was introducing it to her. This was our last escapade for a little while into the works of Joss Whedon. And I had picked this up like forever ago, but I was holding on to it because I wanted to wait until I'd rewatched it again, since this picks up like right after the finale episode, or not really the finale, the final episode of Firefly. And so I picked this up ages ago and I finally read it this month. And I'm so, oh, I need more. I need more. I need to buy the rest. I'm mad that I didn't, because I bought this at the comic book store that was right up the road from us, and then they closed. And now I gotta go find these somewhere else. So I'm gonna have to see if they have them in stock on Amazon or anywhere. But I loved this so much. The art is beautiful. It's full color. The characters are drawn really well. They look exactly like the actors. And this reads just like watching an episode of the story on TV. And I loved it. I need closure. I know there's the movie, and that's kind of closure, but I need some things answered. I need to know. I need to know what's up with Shepard. Was he really a Shepard? Because something wasn't quite right there. And I need to know what they do to River, because something is not being fully explained. And even though they kind of half explain some of it in the movie, they don't really explain all of it. Like the Hands of Blue thing, what is that? And also, I need to know what is up with Mal and Inara. Is anything ever really happened there? What is her deal? Because he's bitter about things. I know that there's something that happened beyond just the war itself, I would imagine. But what is up with them? Are they going to get together? Is anything going to ever happen there? I need to know. I need to know. So I'm hoping some of that stuff comes up in the comics, because I am totally going to read more. I need more. And then I also read An Ember in the Ashes by Sabaa Tahir, and oh my goodness, I loved this book so much. I knew I was going to like it. I'd heard a lot of good things about it. It's historical fiction fantasy because it's very Roman-esque, but it's definitely not our world. It's a different world. It's the marshals and the scholars, and so it's not Rome, but it feels like Rome. And it just, oh, it was so good. Okay, so basically the synopsis is the main character is Laia, and she is a scholar. And her parents, basically the background here is that the scholars were a group of people who lived in this land, and then the marshals came in and they took the land. They conquered the scholars, made them their slaves, and now the marshals are the rulers of this land. And Laia is a scholar, and they're treated very poorly by the marshals. The marshals are very military society based. You can tell by their name, the marshals. And so basically, Laia, her parents were part of the resistance, and before the start of this novel, her parents had both died, and her older sister. They were all killed by the marshals because of their part in the resistance. And so Laia's been raised with her brother, Darren, by their grandparents. And her brother gets involved with the resistance somehow, and he gets taken by the marshals, and her goal in life right now is to get her brother back. So she goes on this quest with the resistance to get him back, and she has to become a slave. And meanwhile, that's her story. Meanwhile, we have Elias, who is a member of the marshals. He is one of the marshals, and he goes to this school that I always want to call Breaksbills because that's what it sounds like in my head. Blackcliff. It's Blackcliff, not Breaksbills. Different story. Okay. But he goes to this school called Blackcliff where children are raised to be soldiers. It's very Spartan-esque. And so he does not want to be a part of this. He doesn't like it. He doesn't like killing. He doesn't want to live his life this way. But to desert is to die, basically, because they will find you and they will kill you. So he has to figure out how to desert. He is at the very last part of the school. He's about to graduate, so he thinks that will be his freedom, but then he gets mixed up in some things, and it's just so good. I loved this book so much. I need to get the sequel because it leaves you with so many questions and a huge cliffhanger, and you need to know what's about to happen. I need more. I have so many questions. So I might do a full video on this, especially if I get my hands on the next book. I'm probably going to do a video about both of them because I have things to talk about. The last book I read was on my Kindle, and I read College Without High School by Blake Bowles. And I read this because I hadn't read it before. I have high schoolers, and I feel like sometimes maybe things aren't working as well as they should. So I wanted to read a different perspective, and this is very much an unschooling book. I'm not an unschooler. I dabble here and there in some of the ideas of unschooling, but I cannot ever fully commit to that. I just can't. But I really wanted to read it because I'd heard some good things about this book, and it did give me some food for thought. But I don't know that we could ever fully commit to something like this. What I liked about it is that he gives you a lot of ideas for how to fully live out your teen years so that you get the most out of them, because when else in life are you going to have this much freedom? I know most teens think that they don't have any freedom, but there's a lot you can do in those years if you use your resources available to you and you go out into the world and you meet people, and unschooling really lends itself well to that. That being said, one of the issues I have a lot with Blake Bowles is that he writes about the subject, but he's never done it. He was not unschooled. He's never unschooled anyone. He's not been unschooled. He just sort of fell into this world that he thought sounded interesting, and now he writes about it. And I'm like, but you don't really know because you haven't done it. So that part bugs me a little bit about him. But other than that, I do enjoy some of his writing. So if you can look past that, this is an interesting read. I don't know that I would ever go completely in this direction. I do want to give my boys especially more opportunities to figure out, because they both don't really know what they want to do. Robbie knows a little more than Riley knows, but Riley is just he doesn't know what he wants to do in the slightest. So I'm trying to find ways to get them to find their passion and to find what they want to know more about and what is interesting to them and study that. So this book was interesting in that perspective. But yeah, I gave it 3 stars because it was interesting, but I don't know. So that's what I read in the month of March. I started a few other books, but I didn't finish them. I started Dr. Sleep. I'm going to finish that in April. I started Columbine. I got slogged in it, and I just couldn't keep going. I'm going to read that. I'm going to finish that in April because I just I had to take a break. It was too upsetting. And I'll talk about those more in my TBR. But that is what I read. Did you read anything interesting in March? I'd love to hear about it. Share with me down below in the comments and we can chat. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys in my next video. Happy reading. Bye!